Hello, my name is Susan Gigi. I'm both an engineer and a planner with the planning department, and I manage what's called the Rail Yard Alternatives and I-280 Boulevard Study, or what we like to call the RAB. But before we get into that, understanding how much the state, region, the city, and San Francisco neighborhoods need rail is important. So, looking at population and employment growth for the next 50-year time frame for the state shows that if we don't have rail, we need 4,300 miles of additional highway lanes. That's like driving from here to Chicago and back. And in addition, we need 115 airport gates, which is more than the number at Oakland, San Jose, and Sacramento airports combined. For the Bay, rail will help in the over 250 million hours of traffic delay drivers experience every year in the Bay Area. It would also decrease the rail commute from San Francisco to San Jose to 30 minutes, and you'd be able to work on the train. Wouldn't both be wonderful? For the city, in 2015, Muni was already operating at 124% capacity on its system, leaving many people behind at its stops in peak hours. That will only get worse with the 12,000 new residents that are projected to come to the city every year for the next 50 years. And for the neighborhoods, just for the southeast quadrant of the city, we're projecting 20,000 new households, 35,000 new jobs, and 520 acres of open space to a part of the city that is challenging at best to get to and around, with an at-grade railroad and an elevated freeway. I find it fascinating to look at San Francisco, how San Francisco looked like then and now. You can really see how San Francisco has changed. The southeast quadrant is likely to become one of, if not the, fastest growing neighborhoods in the city. But will you be able to get around? What needs to be improved? With the population and employment growth anticipated, along with major transportation improvements planned and being constructed, including Caltrain, California High-Speed Rail, and the Salesforce Transit Center, to name a few, San Francisco is at the crux of a 100-year decision that will impact not only the city, but also the region and the state. The RAB has 5 independent components, each representing a major transportation or land use decision that needs to be made in the next 1 to 15 years that will affect San Francisco for the next century. Think of how San Francisco would look without the Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge, each opened 80 years ago. How would we function without BART, which opened 40 years ago? These are big decisions. As part of the study, the city started to layer the projects of various agencies inside and outside of the city. We found some really interesting things. One thing was that with Caltrain and high-speed rail in operations, the at-grade railroad crossings in San Francisco will close to traffic for more than 20 minutes during the peak hour. What do we do with the traffic? Well, there are only 2 ways to continue to allow east-west movements. Your first option is to press the streets below the Caltrain tracks, which would result in a 45-foot deep, 1/2 mile in length, depressed street that further bifurcates the area. This is a major problem with accessibility, specifically for 16th Street, which also serves as the ambulance route to the hospital. Or the other option is we move the rails and trains underground, reclaiming the surface for other modes. This picture shows what the area could look like if we move the trains underground. It's really just any other intersection in San Francisco with some extra green space to enjoy. But how does this conversation up to now relate to the work underway? Let's look at specific components of the study. The first component is the most time-sensitive component and really looks specifically at how to get the trains into the Salesforce Transit Center. 3 options were further studied. The first option, A, shown in green, shows what the city looks like under the current plans. We call it the future with surface rail, where the DTX is built and we trench the 2 at-grade rail intersections in the city. Option B, shown in orange, is Pennsylvania Avenue, and it moves the trains underground around 22nd Street and uses the DTX as designed. Option C, shown in blue, also moves the trains underground but east into Mission Bay. All access the Salesforce Transit Center at the southeast corner to accommodate how the building was built. The second component looks at how do we increase capacity at the Salesforce Transit Center by making the SFTC not a stub-in station, which is where trains go enter and exit at the same point, but the SFTC becomes a through station and trains either continue to the East Bay or return to the south. We looked at 2 alignments. The third component focuses on what if Caltrain operated differently than they do now, with operations or getting on and off the train in one location and storage and maintenance in another. If that happens, the rail yard can be reconfigured and or possibly relocated. The fourth component is what gets all of the attention. It's this idea of taking down 1.2 miles of freeway north of Mariposa, much like Embarcadero and Market Octavia did. Although it's still part of the overall study, it is on a much different time frame than the other components, and lots of additional work has to be completed prior to anything happening with the last section on The fifth component looks at the possible land that could become available. How might we use that area in the best possible way? What does development look like? How do new things fit into the city's existing neighborhoods? If this is moved forward, decisions regarding benefits as well as the balance of development types, building heights, all would be completed during a community planning process. Some of the things we've been grappling with through the study are the types of trade-offs to consider, such as how do you balance things like connectivity, operations, capacity, safety, equity, construction schedules, potential development opportunities, and costs, just to name a few, especially when there are so many agencies involved. But everyone loves a pretty picture, right? Here's one shot of what the area might look like in the future. This is looking down 5th Street towards Mission Creek, where you currently encounter a railroad. Let's just look at this for 8 seconds and breathe. Time's up, unfortunately. And we have to get back to the real world of where we are and what we're still working through the political conversations with various jurisdictions and agencies, as well as grappling with unknowns that still exist. But most importantly, this is a once-in-a-century decision. Come join the party at the next public meeting. This type of work is incredibly important to get right. Thank you for listening.